Good evening, and welcome to the Candidates Forum presented by the League of Women Voters of Northwest Wayne County. My name is Angela Ryan, and I am the president of the Northwest Wayne County League. Tonight we have a two-part forum. We welcome the candidates running for the Michigan Senate 7th District, followed by the candidates running for the Michigan House of Representatives 19th District. We thank the City of Livonia for allowing us to use their facility for this public education event. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. We do not support or oppose any candidate running for any office. The League does take positions on issues after careful study, so you may see our name attached to an issue that we are advocating for or opposing. Membership in the League is open to all citizens who are at least 16 years old, so if you're interested in joining this public service organization, please let us know. The League's main mission is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation in government. One of the ways we do that is by having forums such as this one tonight. The League is also preparing a nonpartisan voter guide, which can be found online at www.vote411.org at the end of September. By typing in your voting address, you can view the races on your primary ballot and the candidates' responses to questions posed by the League. You can also find the link to the voter guide on our website, lwvnorthwestwayne.org. Print copies of the voter guide will be available in the public libraries the first week in October. If the audience would like to ask questions of the candidates, and we certainly encourage this, please write your question on a card and hand it to one of the ushers in the aisle. Our moderator will ask as many questions as time allows. Questions should be brief, to the point, and should not include personal attacks on the candidates. We reserve the right to screen the questions for duplication and clarity. At this time, we would ask all of our audience members to please be sure their cell phones are silenced. That's all of you. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates and not of the League of Women Voters. I'd like to introduce you now to our moderator, League Vice President Paula Bowman, who will provide you with more details about tonight's forum.
Good evening. My name is Paula Bowman. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Northwest Wayne County. We're pleased that you all could join us tonight as we hear from the candidates running for the 7th District State Senate and the 19th District State Representative. Our forum is in two parts, as Angela said. The first hour is devoted to the Senate candidates, and we're going to take a short 5-minute break to change candidates, and then we'll seat the candidates running for the 19th District State House. We ask that the audience remain seated during this time. We don't have a lot of time in between that break. As Angela said, our questions tonight are coming from the audience, and we've also received a number of questions emailed to us in advance. Each candidate is allowed a 1-minute opening statement, a 1-minute response to each question, and a 2-minute closing statement. We'll rotate the order of questions so that the same candidate does not answer first each time. League member Lisa Esquini is our timer for the first hour. She'll be holding up cards so that the candidates know when their time is up. The 7th State Senate District covers the townships of Canton, Plymouth, and Northville, and the cities of Livonia, Plymouth, Northville, and Wayne. There are 3 candidates running for the 7th District seat. The Republican candidate is Laura Cox, the Democratic candidate is Dana Polahanki, and the Libertarian candidate is Joseph LeBlanc. We are sorry that Ms. Cox could not attend tonight's forum. She was invited to submit a statement, which will be read by our League President after the other 2 candidates give their opening statements. Let's begin now with our opening statements. Mr. LeBlanc, can you introduce yourself and give us your 1-minute opening statement?
Well, first off, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters in the City of Livonia, everyone watching online, and those in the audience for attending tonight and learning about the issues and so forth, and teaching us what's a concern to you. Allowing me to introduce myself, my name is Joseph LeBlanc. I'm 55 years old. I'm a lifelong resident of southeastern Michigan. I've been married 33 years to my lovely wife, Lisa. We have 1 adult son who's in his 3rd year of residency as a physician at the University of Michigan Hospital. I am the founder and owner of two businesses. My office is in Canton. One is a IBM business partner. I deal with companies that have IBM mid-range and mainframe computer equipment. The other sponsors trade shows. So with these two companies, I'm not only a local businessman, but also employ local residents in our area.
Thank you. Ms. Polahanky.
Yeah, hi, my name is Dana Polhanke. Thank you to the Nonpartisan League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. Thank you to everyone who came here tonight. This is a long-standing tradition for the voters in Livonia, Plymouth, Canton, Northville, and Wayne so that they can learn more about the candidates on their ballot November 6th. I have to say I'm disappointed that our Republican challenger isn't here today, but that just means Joe and I get more of your attention, so I guess that's a good thing. As a teacher, I have been a public servant for almost 20 years. As a teacher, I have seen firsthand the bad hand that's been dealt to public education over the past 8 years of failed leadership in Lansing. So as a teacher and as a public servant, I am uniquely qualified to legislate on behalf of students and educators in Senate District 7 and all across Michigan. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. LeBlanc, we'll start with you for the first question. Oh, I'm sorry. Forgot to have Angela Ryan read Laura Cox's statement, so here is her 1-minute statement. But get ready, Mr. LeBlanc.
Okay. Dear members of the League of Women Voters, residents, and candidates, I regret that I am unable to be in attendance at tonight's forum. I was honored to participate in a different kind of forum last week, put on by the Livonia JCs as well as the League of Women Voters, where I was able to speak with many Western Wayne County residents. This is sure to be yet another educational, worthwhile event. I currently serve as the representative of the 19th House District, which includes the city of Livonia. However, I have been active in serving the community for many years. A U.S. Customs Special Agent for 13 years, I worked to defend Southeast Michigan from threats like drug trafficking and money laundering. I first ran for public office in 2004 and was elected as Wayne County Commissioner, where I chaired the Ways and Means Committee. I'm currently in my second term in the State House and serve as the first female chair of the House Appropriations Committee. In that capacity, I've twice delivered a state spending plan on time and under budget. I can proudly say that under my leadership, our schools are funded at the highest level in state history, $14.8 billion. The state has pumped an additional $2 billion into fixing our roads and bridges, and we are done. Thank you.
And now we'll begin with our questions. Mr. LeBlanc, what is your position on the ballot proposal to make voting more convenient?
I would be in favor the ballot proposal, anything to make voting more convenient. I think that an educated electorate is a valid and good electorate. So in terms of the no reason absentee ballot, is basically what I would guess you're talking about, I'd be in favor of it. I don't believe that a person should, that we should limit it to the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on one particular day. People should be allowed to vote in a larger window.
Thank you. Ms. Polahanky?
Yes, I have to say that we must ban the partisan gerrymandering, which takes away voters' freedom to choose their own elected officials. And we do need to make voting more accessible, fair, secure by allowing no reason absentee voting, early voting, online voter registration. I know that our college students especially have a hard time voting because of all the barriers currently in place.
Thank you. Ms. Polahanky, we'll start with you on this next one. Please discuss what policy you would support that addresses gun violence in schools. In particular, what is your stand on arming teachers?
I have a definite opinion on that. I think that we must do more to keep guns out of the hands of people with dangerous histories and enact strong common sense gun laws which go hand in hand with the Second Amendment. I think in our current school climate, wouldn't be a bad idea to have resource officers in our school, bolster our entrances, increase funding to get more counselors and social workers inside schools. As far as arming teachers, there are so many potentially deadly scenarios that could occur as a result of arming teachers that it's an idea that's not even worth considering in my mind.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc?
I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment, so let me start with that. There is no one size fits all. When rules are dictated by Washington and when rules are dictated by Lansing, the local community loses that local control. There is no one size fits all that can come out of Lansing. A school that's in the middle of a major metropolitan area that has a police force that is well not maintained, but lots of personnel that's nearby is certainly a different scenario than the school district that's 20 miles from the nearest sheriff deputy. I do believe that there is an ability that we should have the resources, whether it's a resource officer in the school. I think that one of the main issues that we can do here would be just fortify the school and make sure that we know who's in and who's coming through those doors. But there's no one size fits all to that answer.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc, you'll be first to answer this question. What are your thoughts on taxing retirement accounts?
Well, I'm going to give you the Libertarian Party position, and I give you my position. It's one of the main reasons that I fall into this Libertarian category, is for those of us that are paying taxes, we are taxed too much already. So I'm going to give you a mixed answer on that question, is that I don't really believe that one type of income, if you're going to have an income tax, I don't really believe that one type of income should be preferenced over another type of income. But the overriding statement that I started with is we're taxed too dang much here already. So no, I'm not in favor of taxing the pensions. I'm not in favor of the taxation rates that we have on anything on the income taxes.
Thank you. Ms. Polahanki?
You know, I've talked to so many retirees at the door who have a harder time making ends meet because of the retirement tax. As your legislator, I would vote to repeal this attack on our seniors who earned the right to a secure and dignified retirement.
Thank you. Ms. Polahanki, this question is for you. How do you propose to be effective in office if a political party other than yours wins majority control?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is restore civility. I think that if we share the same values, for example, people over profits, providing the best for education for our children, lifting up the middle class, if we can find common ground on these shared values, I think civility can be restored and then smart policy decisions can be made. Schools, roads, clean air, lowering the cost of prescription drugs, these are some of the issues that should be nonpartisan issues.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc?
Well, I can pretty much guarantee you that if you elect me as a Libertarian member, that I will be in the minority in Lansing. I can pretty much guarantee that that's going to be the case. As a Libertarian, if you send me to Lansing, which I hope that you will, is I will have to work with both the majority and the other minority party. And my job will be to be the voice of, so to speak, the salesperson to espouse the fact that our government is too big, there's too much bureaucracies, and we're taxed too much. So my job will be that of a salesperson to the other two parties.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc, do you think taxpayer dollars should be used to help MSU pay the $500 million settlement to Larry Nassar's victims?
No.
Okay. Ms. Polahanki?
These victims absolutely deserve justice. Do I think it should come from taxpayers? No. It should come from those directly responsible and accountable who allowed it to happen.
Thank you. Ms. Polahanki, what would you do to make charter and cyber schools accountable?
I put a lot of thought into this as an educator. You know, 80% of Michigan charter schools are for-profit. compared to 16% nationally, and there's no cap on the number of for-profit charter schools that can open. I don't know about you, but I don't pay taxes for schools just so some corporation and CEO can pocket the money. And make no mistake, the playing field's not level for public and charter schools. My Republican challenger in this race voted recently to divert Wayne County taxpayer money meant for your schools and your kids to for-profit charters, which don't have to pay into the state's retirement system. They often serve fewer students with disabilities and don't face the same transportation costs as traditional districts. The Betsy DeVos unchecked for-profit charter school experiment has failed, and we can and must do better for our kids.
I'd like to remind the candidates that we'd like you to speak about your policies, not about the policies of your opponents. Mr. LeBlanc.
Well, the question was phrased that it left out the public school system, is that all of our schools, whether they are the public or private or charter, need to have benchmarks and prove that they are educating our children. It's also a matter that if you have that competition, it's a matter that you as a parent, if you are with children of that age bracket, is that you should have the choice of where you should send your child, is that the public schools should not have a monopoly on this issue. The public school system, and this goes back to the question of taxation on seniors, is that your income tax that you're paying on your pension is more than likely far less than what you're still paying into the school system at 70, 75, 80 years old when you've raised your children, and more than likely your grandchildren are probably even out of the grade schools and so forth. So the competition is good.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc. Other states have programs to train and assist those coming out of prisons into jobs and places to live. This has reduced crime recidivism. Would you support such a program in Michigan? Why or why not?
Absolutely. If a person has been convicted of a violent crime, as opposed to, I categorize non-violent crimes that probably shouldn't really be crimes, is when a person's been convicted and they've served their time, hopefully the prison system has offered them some type of resources to gain some type of a skill set, trade or book education while they were in there, some type of rehabilitation for education. When they come out, they should have their full rights restored. There should be, when a person comes out of prison and they have to continuously mark their job application that, yes, I was a convicted felon or a no contest to a felony, yeah, it's tough to get a job. So when a person comes out of jail or out of a prison system, yes, their full rights should be restored.
Thank you. Ms. Polanyi?
Yes, we have to empower returning citizens to have a pathway to success in our society to reduce recidivism. I applaud Governor Snyder taking the felony indicator off job applications, which I believe happened recently. The whole criminal justice system in Michigan is a problem. We're one of the few states that spends more on prisons than on higher education, and we incarcerate more than 11% of the national average. People shouldn't have to pay lifetime prices for non-violent infractions. We must therefore increase the diversion programs like mental health courts, veterans courts, sobriety courts, and end privatization of services in jails.
Thank you. Ms. Polanyi. Michigan has one of the lowest ratings for governmental transparency. Would you support the application of the Freedom of Information Act to the legislative and governor's offices?
Yes. It's interesting that as a teacher, I can be FOIA, but no one's allowed to look into the records of our government officials who are supposed to be public servants. We should all be held to the same standards, and Michiganders should have the right to request information that impacts their lives.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc?
A government that's operating behind the curtain and closed is even more dangerous than the government that's operating out in the open. Yes, we need more transparency. A very good example of a flaw that there is in this lack of transparency is, I believe the official name here is the unlimited medical benefits fund here in our no-fault. One of our reasons our no-fault insurance rates are the highest in the nation is potentially not so much just because of the unlimited medical benefits, but there is no transparency whatsoever as to where that money is at, where it's invested, and who's controlling it. And yeah, so transparency is absolutely necessary where it can be applied. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Do you support the continuation of the Healthy Michigan program? Why or why not?
Well, I would say that the Healthy Michigan program is probably, I'm not totally fluent here as to whether that's considered to be a subset of the Medicaid enhancements and so forth. I am not in favor, again, this is a somewhat of a libertarian answer, there is no one-size-fit-all coming out. When Washington came out with Obamacare, there was 10% or so, plus or minus, of people that lost their health insurance because of Obamacare. I was in that category. I could no longer afford my health insurance, and to this day, I belong to a Christian healthcare sharing ministry because I can't afford the Obamacare. This is the same answer as I don't support the government programs of running this healthcare insurance system.
Ms. Polanyi?
Yes, I support even expanding Healthy Michigan. Many Michiganders, even some that can and are working, still can't afford basic health that many others can't afford. As far as healthcare, I support protecting, strengthening, and repairing the ACA, protecting Healthy Michigan. I don't believe anyone should have to lose everything because they have a pre-existing condition or a lifetime cap or a high deductible.
Thank you. Ms. Polanyi, Senate Bill 727, which has passed, changes the law covering occupational licensing for Michigan teachers. What is your view of this legislation?
I don't know about that legislation. Could you repeat the question?
Sure. Senate Bill 727, which has passed, changes the law covering occupational licensing for Michigan teachers. What is your view of this legislation?
I would have to know how it changes the occupational licensing before I could express my view. Honestly, as a teacher, that's not something I've heard of. If it's new and coming down the pipeline, perhaps that's why, but I really can't answer that question in full.
Okay, Mr. LeBlanc?
Well, I also have to say is I'm not fluent particularly with that bill, but in order for me to attempt to answer the question it's estimated that 20% of occupations in Michigan require some type of an occupational license from Lansing. And that's way too much. There was a salon in Garden City that was cited that somebody was shampooing hair, and the state came in and said that they did not have a proper occupational license. We're putting too many barriers. When we talk about unemployment and people having good paying jobs, is that if Lansing keeps putting up occupational barriers, it doesn't work. So in regards to the bill, I can't speak directly of it, but if the bill is reducing an occupational licensing requirement, I would more than likely be for it.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Senator Patrick Colbeck proposed removing references to the KKK and Roe v. Wade from the state's history textbooks. He also wanted to remove the word democratic from references to this country's democratic values. What is your view of these proposed changes?
I'm sorry, I've lost track. Who's first?
You're first.
I'm first on this one, okay. Well, they always say that the victor writes the history books. No, I would not agree. I'd have to get into an absolute specifics as to why he is proposing or did propose, I guess would be the answer, those particular words or paragraphs, so to speak. No, you can't have censorship, and that censorship in regards to that is in the internet age is out of the bag, as it would be anyway. No, I don't think we should be censoring words and so forth like that. What's happened in the history is the history.
Thank you, Ms. Polanki.
Right, I know of a few teachers and parents and concerned citizens who attended the multiple public hearings on these ridiculous suggestions. They're ridiculous, and I think I'm going to stop there.
Okay. We'll start with you with this next
Yes.
question. What is your stance on the current state of LGBTQT rights?
I will absolutely. First of all, I'm endorsed by the Equality Michigan PAC, which is an LGBTQ organization. I am a member of my school's diversity club, which is made up of many LGBTQ students. I will absolutely pursue policies that provide equal protection under the law for our LGBTQ friends.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc.
All of your rights as a person flow from God, not from the government. That being said, is that there should be no discrimination on the part of the government over anyone's orientation or any flavor of orientation. It is not the government's job, it is not my job to control another person's identity.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc, we'll start with you. What do you think should be done with the Line 5 pipeline?
I am concerned about the age of the pipeline. Not being a pipeline engineer, I certainly don't have the expertise to speak on its integrity and age as it relates to its integrity. It's certainly something that has to be continuously watched and inspected. But, you know, the environmentalists and so forth is that there's concern over that particular line. And yes, that's a very important part going across the straits, but you know, any pipeline that's carrying oil and so forth across our beautiful state, whether it's in the UP or down here, is of concern that has to be inspected and looked at and watched, not to call one particular pipeline out over others.
Thank you. Ms. Polanki?
You know, witnessing the Exxon Valdez oil spill as a young person and the devastation it caused, I remember thinking, how could we allow this to happen? I don't believe oil pipelines belong in our water, and I support shutting down the Enbridge Line 5 that runs underneath the Straits of Mackinac. You know, if Line 5 bursts, which there is some indication it could do, 720 miles of shoreline along Lake Huron and Lake Michigan could be poisoned in a day. So, you know, until we break our reliance on fossil fuels, we should find alternatives to Line 5 that protect the environment and preserve jobs.
Thank you. Ms. Polanki, we'll start with you. If you don't win this election, how will you contribute to this community outside the sphere of elective office?
Well, I was at my American Association of University Women meeting yesterday, and I told them I'll be back for the December meeting, whether I win or lose. And the question was, how will I contribute?
Yes.
Right. Well, you know, if I don't win, I'll go back to my already great life as a teacher, and I'll continue teaching students and being a public servant in that way. You know, I've also made so many good friends at even the Corn Roast alone in Livonia, so many worthy groups that I didn't really know existed before this campaign that I would love to join and help.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc?
Well, everyone who's watching right now over the internet and everyone who's in the room here right now is performing a civic duty in their own way by becoming educated. I'm willing to go through, and the other candidate is willing to go through the ridicule and so forth, and the pain of being up here and standing and sitting before you. So the answer would be is that if I am not elected, you will still see me espousing the same views. You will still see me more than likely up running again, just to give you another choice, because that's why I'm up here, is I'm performing my civic duty by giving you another choice.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc, we'll start with you. As legacy costs increase, are you in favor of lowering public sector pensions that were already negotiated? Will you take away retirement health care to save money?
Offhand, no, I'm not in favor of reneging on promises that have been made. That being said, is that we can address this not only on the local issue of someone saying that they've got a public pension right here in Michigan, but you know, if you talk to, if we expand this out and state the Social Security system even as a whole, you know, if you talk with a lot of 20 and 30 and 40-year-olds and so forth, is that there's a lot of doubt whether the Social Security system is even going to be there for them. So, no, I'm not in favor of reneging on a promise that has been made, but at the same time, you can't pull the money out of a magic hat here for the Social Security system or a public pension. And that is that there's a lot of these things that are in trouble, and we better come up with some solutions for them.
Thank you, Ms. Polahanky.
Could you just repeat the question?
Sure. As legacy costs increase, are you in favor of lowering public sector pensions that were already negotiated? Will you take away retirement health care to save money?
No and no. I will not, I'm not in favor of lowering public sector pensions, and I'm not in favor of taking retirement health care to save money. You know, if the budget's, if you look at the budget like a pie, you just have to think about how you're going to divide up the pie that reflects your priorities. And you have to determine your priorities, and the party in charge largely gets to do that. Are you for education, roads, or giving tax cuts to big corporations? So that's how the money is going to work, and we can find ways other than, you know, attacking our pensions and retirement health care. Our seniors deserve a right to a secure and dignified retirement.
Thank you. Ms. Polahanky, what do you think of let me start over. What do you think of a part-time legislature for Michigan?
Well, I haven't put a lot of thought into that. I would say no, because if I were to have to go from being a teacher to being a part-time worker, I couldn't afford it and I wouldn't run. So, you know, I do think that legislators deserve a full-time job and salary and some benefits so they can work for the people who they serve. So if you take it down to part-time, I think it's going to be exclusionary and exclude a lot of good people who need a full-time job to make ends meet.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes, I'd be in favor of the part-time legislature. I think it also needs to be looked at and studied as to whether Michigan needs to have two houses, whether we need to have a House and a Senate, on how much duplication that's being done between the two houses. As I know, what I believe is a fact here is that I believe it's Nebraska that only has one house in their legislature. They also, I believe, are part-time. Many other states are part-time. Serving you in the public in this capacity should not be a full-time career, and it really should not be a full-time job.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc? Recently, a study was done that said we should be funding schools at $8,900 per student. How would you fund schools to bring up the per pupil funding to that level, or would you?
I believe in this, I know that people that are within the school system that are not going to be fond of my answer, but I believe that the the issue with funding and so forth is not a problem with the teacher in the classroom. The teachers are doing an admirable job, for the most part. I'm not saying that every teacher is. But the problem with the funding in the school district is that it is always that and this isn't just a school district, it's road millages, it's recreation centers and so forth, it's always that they feel that these millage rates and so forth are an endless supply to tap into your wallet. Is when you're talking that number is close to $9,000. If we've got 30 students in a classroom, $9,000 times 30 students is $270,000 going as potential allocation of the classroom. There has to be too much money in the bureaucracy and the overhead that's going on. The problem's not the teacher in the classroom, but there's too much bureaucracy.
Thank you. Ms. Polanyi?
Well, I don't see the bureaucracy. I see that we're teaching with the bare bones minimum, and I know you said it's not the teachers, but even in the school system itself, I actually think we should heed the call of the recent bipartisan Michigan School Finance Research Collaborative's adequacy study that recommends an increase in per pupil based funding to, I think it's $9,500. The stark reality is that school finance determines the quality and quantity of instruction, period. That's from the Upjohn Institute in 2015. We do need to get rid of a one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter funding formula in place of one that takes into consideration the unique needs of all schools, and remove the Betsy DeVos for-profit motive in education. I'll end that.
Thank you. Ms. Polanyi? Some people in Lansing have proposed eliminating the income tax and replacing it with a 15% consumption tax to eliminate loopholes and make sure people pay their fair share. Do you support this? Why or why not?
No, I'm not in favor of this. I believe that some economic experts predict that this would have a disproportionate and negative impact on seniors, middle-class families, those with more limited budgets. I think that middle-class families are already struggling to make ends meet, and they often spend a greater percentage of their income on consumable products as it is.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc?
Well, I understand that there is government function. I'm not an anarchist that thinks that we need to abolish all levels of government. So when I talk about taxation, I am not an anarchist talking about that we need to throw everybody out. But we are taxed too much already, whether it's the income tax or in this case, no. The question as it's phrased is not workable. We can't institute a value-added tax in Michigan of a 15% without there being other coordination with other states and so forth. What in the world would I pay a 15% VAT tax, sales tax here in Michigan if I coordinate and drive 45 miles down to Toledo and deal with Ohio taxes? This is an issue regarding this VAT tax. This is an issue with the Supreme Court ruling about out-of-state sales tax, and that is an absolute disaster and mess to a lot of businesses.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc, this next question. How can the legislature best support university-level education and research?
I think one of the best ways, and again, this is kind of a libertarian type answer, one of the best ways to support our universities and so forth is to allow them to do their job and allow them to do as their boards and so forth and that want to be doing, to keep our hands off of it and stop issuing more and more regulations and so forth, controlling other entities, other government entities. As an example here is I think a fine college is Hillsdale College, which takes no government money so that they don't have to deal with any of the government bureaucracies.
Thank you. Ms. Polanyi?
I think I'd like to start with how I would best support university-level education. Around 70% of tuition hikes at our public universities can be attributed to cuts in state higher ed funding. Michigan, again, is one of a handful of states that spends more on its prison system than on higher education, and I think we must invest in higher education for our young people and for Michigan's economy to thrive. As far as the research component, research not only educates and prepares our students for careers in a field, but it can create jobs and entice more of the best and the brightest to want to make Michigan their home.
Thank you. Ms. Polahonki, this next question. Would you support legislation that would require equal pay for women? Why or why not?
Yes. In America, 80% of teachers, nurses, secretaries, and health aides are female. Career choices are a big reason why women are still paid less than men, and that these important careers are relatively low-paying jobs is what's wrong with our priorities as a state and a nation. It's simple, no matter who you are, you should be given equal pay for equal work.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc?
The first answer is that I absolutely agree with the concept of equal pay for equal work. I also make the statement that the more that Washington and the more that Lansing attempts to regulate and put more cost on the business translates into higher cost for you and to less employment, is the more that when Lansing and Washington dictates, when they dictate medical leave and so forth, that cost does not just magically get anticipated and get handled by the business. Any of these regulations and so forth that Lansing issues has a cost to the business and then has a cost to you as a consumer.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc, this next question. What do you consider the most important environmental issue in the District 7 area?
The most important environmental issue. I don't really, off the top of my head, that's a tough one for me to try to narrow that down to say what's the biggest environmental issue. I guess I would have to try to answer that is that our congestion that you'd have on roadways and so forth, and the smog type issues and that from our combustible engines and that, I guess, would be my biggest environmental concern right here.
Ms. Polahonki?
I know that in the Alden, just east of the Ford transmission plant is a little neighborhood called Alden Village, and they are concerned because Ford discovered that many years ago, maybe the 50s, maybe the 80s, some contaminants leaked and have developed into a very big plume that is extending eastward from the plant that contains some toxic chemicals like vinyl chloride. And although it hasn't made its way into the water, there is some concern that the gas from the vinyl chloride can seep up through basements and crawl spaces.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Polahonki, what would you do to fix the roads in Michigan? Would you raise the fee on large trucks?
Well, Michiganders are paying more in car registration fees and gas taxes, but our roads are still a nightmare. Not to mention the average cost to repair a pothole damaged vehicle is $300. Our roads and bridges should not be crumbling when we're paying more. As a legislator, I would want to invest in better materials and find ways to make them cost effective. I would enforce warranties. Yes, I would enforce truck weight limits and demand that corporations that use our roads to run their businesses pay their fair share in taxes to repair them.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc?
You know, we continuously here in Michigan, as we're continuously told, well, it's our environment, it's our winters, it's this and that that's doing our roads. You know, Toledo, their winter's not a whole lot different, and Ontario's not a whole lot different, and Wisconsin's not a whole lot different. The issue here is not a funding, again, issue. It's a matter is that we are paying enough in our gasoline tax, we are paying enough in our car registration fees that have gone up. For those that are driving hybrids or electric vehicles, the rates went up even higher. We're paying it in our license plate fees. This is not a funding issue. I am not a concrete specialist. I am not a concrete expert, but we are building these roads. We're doing something wrong, and we need to correct the flaw that's being done in the building. And we also need if it's the low bidder or if it wasn't the low bidder that got the job, we need to have a warranty. The dang road can't fall apart right after it's built.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc, this next question, who are the biggest contributors to your campaign?
Me. My campaign is self-funded. I will also touch on this in my closing statement when we get down there, I am not accepting PAC donations. I am not accepting any money from the government. When I decided to do this, it's a matter in talking it over with my family, is the money that is spent comes from my wallet. So there's no influence, there's no impropriety at all. It's my money and my family's money.
Thank you. Ms. Polahenke?
A small, well, I did put some of I have to have some skin in the game. I did put a little bit of my own money in there, some of my savings. A small portion comes from my friends in labor, whose values I share, and who want to see our campaign succeed. But we've had over 400 individual donors, just regular folks like you and me with, small dollar donations.
Thank you. Ms. Polahenke, if elected, what would you do to make yourself available to your constituents?
Coffee talks. That I know that legislators have, state legislators have Mondays and Fridays in district, and I would not squander the opportunity to talk to my constituents on Mondays and Fridays and by email and phone on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I think it's fun for me to talk to voters. I'm a public servant. They're my boss, so they need to find me accessible.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc?
Well, I certainly wouldn't be hiding up in Lansing in today's internet age. We certainly have the continuous, instantaneous almost issue of email and internet communications ability. Of course, that I would also have more than likely an in-district office and so forth, and would be holding the public, I don't drink coffee, so I'm not going to say coffee meetings, but basically Diet Coke. I'd have my Diet Coke while you had your coffee. So I would be certainly accessible. You'll notice even in putting my money where my mouth is, on my campaign literature, and that's my cell phone number that's on there, and that wouldn't be changing once I'm your state senator.
Thank you. Mr. LeBlanc, this next one's for you. The state legislature just passed a bill to raise the minimum wage in Michigan, which eliminated the planned ballot proposal on this issue. If the next legislature seeks to undo the impact of this bill, what would your position be?
Minimum wage bills, while I understand the concept and so forth behind it, minimum wage is not meant to be a career position. It's a matter that's your starting to get your feet in the door and build up your career and build towards your next job or your other jobs in your career. And any time that the government regulates and places that a much higher minimum wage, and like I say, the mandated leaves and so forth on people, on businesses, is reducing the amount of jobs that our young people have to get their foot in the door. So I would have to, I can't give you an absolute answer right at the moment, but I would look at a hard look at the fact that, no, the minimum wage issue. The more regulations, the worse off we are.
Thank you, Ms. Polanki.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. The state legislature just passed a bill to raise the minimum wage in Michigan, which eliminated the planned ballot proposal on this issue. If the next legislature seeks to undo the impact of this bill, what would your position be?
Yeah, I was disappointed that they didn't let this go to the voters. I hope that it will remain intact. I do believe we should raise the minimum wage. Wages are so low that many Michiganders have to work more than one job just to afford the basic necessities. As a matter of fact, 40% of Michiganders can't afford basic things like transportation, childcare, food. And I think one job should be enough. You know, let's have a living wage for our Michiganders.
Thank you, Ms. Polanki. We'll start with you on this next one. What is your position on ballot initiative 2, the one that would end gerrymandering in Michigan as we know it, and establish an independent commission to handle redistricting?
I think voters, not politicians, who establish the grassroots effort to end gerrymandering in Michigan. I think they should be Michiganders of the Year. I think what they've done is wonderful. We should be drawing our district lines, not politicians who draw them unfairly. I like the fact that they'll have a certain number of Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, and anywhere in between draw the line. So I'm absolutely for ending gerrymandering in Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc.
Well, we know the current system in our districts that shaped like worms and scorpions and everything. We obviously know that that really is not working. Personally, I'm not in favor. I'm in favor of changing what we're doing. I don't think it's working. I'm not in favor of Proposal 2 because the way, and I don't have it right in front of me, so I can't sit here and cite line by line, but it puts into code that the two controlling parties are then put in charge of, for the majority of the redistricting. The two major parties are still in control. It locks out too much the independents and the libertarians in this case. You know, this isn't a hard concept. Geography works, geometry works. Is, you know, subject to municipal borders, let's draw some rectangles and so forth and end the worms and the scorpions.
Thank you. This will be our last question before our closing statements. Mr. LeBlanc, we'll start with you. If elected, you will need to reach agreements with others whose interests may be in direct conflict with yours. When was the last time you collaborated with people you disliked or disagreed with to get something important done?
Well, as a business person, you're continuously working with people in trying to find your common ground so that there's a good gain for all parties. When you're out on the campaign trail, I'm not going to say that I massively change somebody's mind or they change my mind, but you're continuously, when we're walking around talking to voters, you come up with people that you're more than 180 degrees opposite on the opinion. You know, that's good. I mean, it's human nature and so forth. In business, you're constantly doing that and working with parties that have an opposing position to come to a common ground. As your state legislator, as I said earlier, as a libertarian, my job will be to sell our positions of the less government and the less taxes to the other two parties.
Thank you. Ms. Polanki?
Yeah, sitting here, I'm trying to think when I've worked collaboratively to do something with people who I've disagreed with. You know, I disagree with teachers in the teachers' lounge a lot, but we do work collaboratively to get things done. I'm just thinking of the campaign trail and people who say things to me that I'm fundamentally against. and we somehow find common ground somewhere. And I do think we need to restore civility in our government and with our friends and neighbors by finding shared values, like, again, you know, great education for our kids, people over profits, and you know, lifting up middle-class families.
Thank you. We'll now start with our closing statements. You each have 2 minutes, and Ms. Polahonki, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you so much. Again, I'm grateful to the League of Women Voters for the important work that you do and for extending an invitation to me to participate in this time-honored tradition in Livonia. In closing, I would like to let you know about some of the organizations who have endorsed our campaign in the Democratic primary. We have been endorsed by my union, the MEA, the Detroit News, Emily's List, the Progressive Women's Caucus, the Michigan AFL-CIO, the UAW Region 1A, the Building and Construction Trades in Michigan, the Michigan Association for Justice, the Sierra Club, the Michigan League of Conservation Voters, the Michigan Professional Firefighters Union, the Michigan Federation of College Democrats, and Equality Michigan Pride PAC, and a lot of other incredible organizations. But now I need the most important endorsement of all, which is yours. The families of Livonia, Plymouth, Canton, Northville, and Wayne deserve a fighter for the middle class in Lansing. It's time to support public education, protect our Great Lakes, fix our roads without further burdening the middle class, ensure access to quality, affordable health care, protect our seniors, and create economic prosperity for all Michiganders. My name is Dana Polhanke, that's Dana with a Y, and I'd be honored to earn your vote on November 6th.
The League would like to thank both candidates for participating in this forum. We appreciated you being on the firing line with just 2 of you here. We're going to take a quick break right now. Mr. LeBlanc, would you like to give your closing statement? It's been a long day.
That's okay. Apologies accepted. When I decided to run for office, you open yourself up to a lot of ridicule and you open yourself up to a lot of hard work. But I'm here because I'm trying to give you guys another choice. The current system of the Republican and the Democrats continuously going after each other, and that when they know that even if they lose this election in 2 years or 4 years, they'll be back in power. So all they do is just trade back and forth. We're not accomplishing. This system isn't working anymore. So I'm here trying to give you this other choice. I know there's no such thing as a free lunch. It's a matter is that when you're promised free health care, when you're promised free college tuition and so forth, it's a matter somebody's got to pay for that. And it's a matter is the people that are paying for it and the deficit spending that the Republicans and the Democrats are giving us, the system's broken, it's failing, and it's going to collapse. It's not going to continue. I'm not a career politician. I'm here doing my civic duty by sitting here in front of you and running for this office. It's estimated that this district alone will spend approximately $750,000 on this race. I don't have that kind of money. As I said earlier, the money that's being spent on my campaign is coming out of my pocket. So as we get close to election date, you're not going to get 2 postcards a week. You're not going to get 3 postcards a week from me with my picture on it. You're not going to get the robocall at dinner. That alone should be a reason for you to vote for me. I need the word of mouth. I need your vote, and I need the word of mouth. I can't do it with advertising. You need to talk to your friends and neighbors, understand this grassroots, what I'm trying to do for your benefit. I need your help. I need the word of mouth. I don't have the dollars. Let that $750,000 number sink in.
Okay, we're good now, right? Got everybody? I apologize for the slight, but we do thank you both for participating. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break to change the candidates so that we can get ready for our House of Representatives forum. Thank you.